All right.
Welcome to the Dagnabbit Boys podcast. If you haven't checked out Cooper Lyden's 2 comedy specials he put out, make sure to check that out. Click off this, check out Cooper's stuff, and then come back to this.
Can I have a little bit of that Coke?
Yeah.
Let me just get I just want just a shot of it.
He's Cooper's. So we're back in space, you guys might have noticed. Oh, Cooper's messing up space. Yeah, our last episode was shot not in space, in Sam's apartment. But there's been demand for space. A small amount of space. Or Coke.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
It's the least I can do. You ate my asshole before the pot.
I did not.
He needed that Coke to wash the taste of asshole out of his mouth.
We're going to start the pod there.
Okay. Oh, the pod didn't even start.
No, I mean, I don't know. You've been saying a lot of funny stuff, but that's a good place to cut. I got out, took a little bit of Shane's Coca-Cola. I felt tired before this. I felt tired. Do you feel tired all day?
Yeah, I feel awful every single moment of every single day. It's never good.
Do you feel like you could just keep sleeping and just never stop sleeping?
No, and that's what sucks.
So you can't sleep?
Well, when I do sleep, I sleep for too long. I don't have this problem as bad, but I used to wake up in the middle of the night, like, constantly.
When you wake up in the morning, though, is it hard to get out of bed?
Yeah.
Right?
It's very hard, and then I don't. So I go back to sleep.
But you kind of feel like... Do you ever feel like, okay, now I've slept enough? Or do you just eventually get out of bed?
No, I never feel like I've slept.
You just eventually get out of bed?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel, because I feel like I have some days where I'm like, okay, I don't work. I'm going to, like, sleep in. But then it's like 2 p.m., and I don't feel rested at all.
Yeah.
And I've slept, like, maybe 12 to 14 hours. And I'm like, well, I have to just stop now.
Do you have nightmares?
Yeah. I had a nightmare. It's not really a nightmare, but last night I had a dream that I relapsed.
Oh.
That I, like, just got really drunk. And it was actually really sad because I, like, relapsed, and then I was thinking about it, and I was like, damn, now I have nothing. I was like, my comedy career is not going well. I don't have a relationship. I have no money. I don't have a good job. And I don't even have sobriety from alcohol, which isn't really even an achievement to begin with.
Because you relapsed in your dream?
Yeah, in my dream, that's what I felt.
Oh.
You know, I was just like, damn, I got nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that when I woke up. I actually didn't remember I had the dream until this morning. Or no, like later in the day.
Are you still smoking weed? Or taking it?
Yeah, I'm not fully sober. But I don't smoke weed very often. I don't really buy weed. The last time I smoked any weed was like last week. I hit a weed pen.
Yeah.
And then I just get so high. And then I'm like, oh, I got to go home. But then I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like driving.
Yeah.
Which I used to like driving high, but now I get a little too high too quickly, and I have to kind of come down. So, yeah, I don't know. Being fully sober.
Hit somebody when you're high, that gives you a lot of paranoia.
I'd
be run over a homeless guy and he dies.
Yeah, if I felt like the rumble of a body over the front and then back tires of a homeless guy, I'd be anxious.
Yeah, me too.
I would run over a homeless guy, and the first thing I'd say, I'd be like, whoa, I'm feeling really anxious right now, actually.
Yeah, that's why I can't smoke weed, because when I run over homeless people in my car, it makes me feel bad.
But when you're sober, you're like more locked in.
Yes.
And you know what to do, which is
you're in control.
Just keep driving.
Yeah, because nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares at all. But every time I get high, I'm just sort of like, I don't really feel like making a rule about it because I don't really have a problem with weed, but it does feel like now whenever I take it, I'm like, it's better to just be sober.
You feel like a liar. You know, when you take weed and then you go and you're like bragging about, I don't even drink.
I mean, do you brag about it?
Yeah.
Where do you brag about it?
At work. I tell customers. I'm like, hey.
You tell customers I don't drink?
Yes.
At a club where we want them to drink?
Yes. I say, I don't drink and you shouldn't either.
So you're driving down drink sales, which are the only thing that keeps a comedy club alive?
I say, don't get drinks. In fact, Don't even buy a ticket. They're
Leave.
looking to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
And
you're
I say there's better things with your time on Sunset.
you get lost in a book. Why don't you just go home and get lost in the works of T.S. Eliot? Why do you want to go see a show so bad?
The Wasteland, hard recommendation.
They're looking at you like, I just want to buy a ticket. And you're like, you really should read The Wasteland. It's great.
I mean, Bobby Lee's funny, but The Wasteland will change your life.
Listen, I mean, it's all fun and games watching Mark and Maron. Mark
and Maron.
Those are my favorite comedians, Mark and Maron. It's my favorite radio show. What the fuck with Mark and Maron? I can't believe it's ending. Shout out Mark and Maron and the What the Fact podcast.
Yeah, what's up, what the fuckers?
Yeah, I heard all the What the Fuckers came over after that podcast is ending. So I just want to welcome you guys. This podcast kind of has none of the appeal of...
Yeah, because you know how you like to listen to famous people talk? Well, this isn't. We're not.
Yeah, I mean, you still get the sobriety, but you don't get actual sobriety, a full sobriety like Mark has.
And we don't even have the cats for love.
You don't have the
we
cats.
have no love.
Yeah, and
we don't even have cats.
And you don't necessarily have like kind of the wisdom and experience of a guy who's older and has been sober for like a long time to talk about that. You just have kind of young guys who really
not even saying things we believe, just saying things just to say them and be like, maybe that. And then
yeah.
Oh, maybe also this.
Yeah, you know how Mark is kind of a genuine guy, like kind of anything he thinks, he'll say it, which is cool. A guy that's that famous and popular to really speak his mind that much. He honestly almost doesn't even get enough credit for it. You know, it's a lot of people will be like, oh, like Rogan and all them really speak their mind. But, you know, Rogan is kind of in the pocket of a lot of people now.
Yes.
But Mark is not. And he really just says anything he feels, which is cool because a lot of people would be afraid to do that even just because they're afraid of conflict in other comedians, but he's not. The point is, you don't get that on this podcast.
Yeah. Do you like two guys waiting to talk?
Yeah. Do you want to watch two guys not really ever listen to each other? the amount of times I rewatch this podcast and I just hear a joke you said and I'm like, I didn't acknowledge that at all. I'm like, I'll do a bit and then you'll do a bit and then my bit will just be a continuation of the thing I said. And sometimes you'll say stuff that's really funny and I'm like, I didn't even get that joke when he said it. I just said yes. I just agreed with the joke because sometimes I'll hear the jokes you'll say and I'll be like, that's funny. But then I'll watch it again and I'm like, you didn't even fully get the joke he was making. It was actually it was funnier than you even gave it credit for. So
yeah,
you get that.
Do you want to watch two guys that like really love and respect each other but won't listen to each other? Then this is the podcast for you.
Do you want to watch two guys who are so broken that they can only be friends with each other, but are also so broken that they can't ever really become close with each other? Because they're not able to listen to other people. And I know that you like the What the Fuck podcast because you get to hear like Henry Rollins talk about like, you know, cool punk shows he was at and famous people he was meeting. And you even get to listen to President Obama. And, you know, if you like Robert Schultz or Eric Griffin or Jesse Johnson.
Oh, yeah. If you like them, we can interrupt them.
Yeah. You can hear them begin a story and then us talk about something else. You can hear Jesse Johnson talk about being on the road with Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino, and then Shane will talk about the one time he met Nick Mullen.
Did that happen?
No.
Okay.
But it could. And I could have said something as well. I mean, we're terrible at this. We're
getting better.
We're getting worse.
Oh, okay.
I think we're getting worse. I think we've only gotten worse at this. I watched a little bit of the first episode, a clip from it. Those were glory days.
Oh, you watched the clip from the fan mail, which was a thing I was really excited to do, and then we proceeded to never do anything like that again. No,
it's also a great podcast if you really don't like follow through. Real fans of the pod will remember we had a theme song. We did have a theme song. We put a little bit of time into it. I'm not going to act like we worked hard on it, but we put time into it. It took like half an hour.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, let me put a guitar track to it. And then I kind of deleted the original theme song we had and lost it forever. And then we never got to recording any of Shane singing to the new guitar track I have. And so now we've just had no theme song. And my thing is now I edit it and I watch it and I go, I think it's kind of cool that our podcast just goes right into it. You get a little title card and then it just begins. But really...
And then it begins, because the first 5 minutes are the most important part, but it begins with probably you saying something or me saying something we shouldn't say on YouTube.
Totally. Yeah. But also, I don't know, mostly you have to worry about what you say if you're monetized, and...
That'll never happen for
us.
No,
so... Here's
anyway, thank you, what the fuckers, for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. What's some stuff people from the What the Fuck podcast would did you know anything about like the 90s grunge, and do you have any like opinions on it?
I'm gonna be completely real with you, Cooper. I've listened to two to three episodes of What the Fuck.
Yeah. I feel like that is almost how it is with those hyper famous podcasts, where you don't always find active listeners of it, which is weird. Because you would think that you would find people that listen to it all the time. But then...
What the Fuckers would probably want us to talk about our journey.
Well, What the Fuck kind of became more like a TV show, like a news talk show, like 60 Minutes, to where you kind of watch it when the person being interviewed you're interested in.
Yeah,
which is
I
weird,
don't even
though,
do that.
But it was also weird because I'm a fan of Mark Maron. You're a fan of Mark Maron.
Yeah.
I like Mark Maron a lot more than any guest he's had on, because I like Mark Maron, but I don't listen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even listen to the guys that are like my favorites.
Maybe Mark Maron...
If Tim Heidecker came out and did an episode all about like my favorite of his work, I wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah, because
he might have already done that.
Do you almost have a feeling where you're like, well, I almost want that to be so good it can only disappoint me? You're like, this comedian I like being interviewed by another comedian I like talking about work they did that I like. That sounds great. It sounds so good, I bet I won't. I bet I'll expect too much from it and won't like it.
That's how I feel about everything.
I was thinking about that. I was going to sleep and I was thinking of an analogy to describe how the joy kind of and the curiosity can get sucked out of life. And I was thinking about a fair where, like, let's say you're 5 years old and you never gone to a fair and your parents like, we're going to go to a fair. And you're like, what's that? And they're like, it's a really fun place with tons of games. And you trust your parents and you've never been there. So you're like, great, this is going to be awesome. And you show up, it's your first time at a fair and you're amazed because you're like, holy shit. There's like a Ferris wheel and there's bumper cars and there's all these games I've never seen. This is the first time. This is amazing. This is awesome. You have an amazing time. And then you go next year, and next year is fun too, because now you're going, I'm going back to the fair, and now I know the fair's fun. So I'm expecting a fun time. And you come back and you have a great time again. And then the third year you go and you do all the same stuff, but then this time you like don't do the ring toss because you're like, I've done the ring toss before and I don't totally like it. You know what I mean? And then you go a fourth year and then you kind of do the bumper cars like 5 times. You don't really do much else. And then so on and so on and so on until eventually you're a teenager and your dad says, hey, don't you want to go to the fair? Don't you love the fair? You love the fair. And you go, no, the fair's gay.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Why? And you're like, because I've seen the fair so much. And then eventually it seems like life just becomes this big thing where you just think you've seen everything. And that's also not true. You kind of start to lie to yourself. You haven't seen everything. And you almost believe that there's no more fairs to see.
Yeah.
And then you just stop doing everything. And you just lay in bed all day. And you go, well, I'll just lay in bed because this feels fine.
It feels good almost.
And then you say life sucks when really there are other new things to see, but you've kind of depressed yourself so much you have no interest in seeing those things.
Do you love a good wallow? I love to wallow. I don't even wallow about me. I wallow about everybody. I like to go out. I like to go outside and smoke cigarettes. I like to smoke like 10 cigarettes in a row and listen to music that's about bad stuff. You know, there's this album I was listening to last night. That's like one of those outsider art albums. It was just some guy who worked at a guitar store that had been to prison. And it's all just like kind of monologue sent to pop synth music, but they're all super fucked up. They're about like seedy underground shit. There's 2 songs about hitmen. One's about a guy who's an independent contractor, and the other one is the one that closes the album. And it's a guy that kills people's wives when they ask for divorce, and then it gradually becomes apparent the guy enjoys killing and mutilating women and gets a sexual thrill out of it.
Well, I guess you kind of have to for that type of work.
Yeah.
It would be funny to be disgusted by your hitman, where the hitman's like, I actually enjoy killing the people, and then he's like, ew. Whoa.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that you love your work, so you never work a day in your life?
I thought this was just your job, sir.
Yeah.
I didn't think you were some sort of passion artist. That's not what I paid for. Well, that's the difference between you and me, is I wallow about myself too much, which is also why I'm disgusted with myself, which then becomes kind of a cycle of you wallow about yourself, and you go, that's so fucking selfish. And then, but even doing that, you're still wallowing about yourself. So you just continue that cycle. I had 2 days where I barely got out of bed. I had all this stuff I wanted to do, and then I just didn't get out of bed. And I was thinking about how I'm a piece of shit and should kill myself. And then I was saying, I almost wrote a joke about it, but then the joke just turned into like a scribbling angry journal.
Yeah.
Where I was like writing about the Iran war, and I was like, I just hope I hope they do bomb LA and I die. Or at least like they explode things around me and I have a reason to live, you know? Because like right now my life is just so like easy and undeserved, and I still don't enjoy it, and that's so fucked up. To have such an easy life where like everything's so easy, but you're still so sad, and it's like how you can not find purpose with so much opportunity, but it's almost like the opportunity sort of erodes the purpose, which is like I think it's probably the most privileged opinion possible, to be like, my life's so easy, I wish I was bombed. Then I'd have something to care about.
LA's weird. I don't think I've ever been in a place where people complain when they're only like 3.5 years into comedy for not being famous. It's kind of like, it's weird. It's like, do you not expect this to last super long?
Yeah, well, I mean, the environment really changes people's perspective of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like a city that people come to be famous, you know? People go to New York to get good at stand-up, but people come to L.A. to become, like, famous. You know, people be like, I'm ready for L.A., and some people are, you know? Some people show up, and truly within 2 months they're in at all the clubs. But then the people on the outside who are really sad about it don't really realize that the people who came here and were, quote, ready had a manager that contacted all the bookers, and they had followers and had cachet, and, you know, getting into those clubs was more a business decision by those clubs. And it's not the same as they didn't go to the mics and just showcase their skills or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, more than any other city, people are, because you're surrounded by famous people. So you feel like a loser all the time. Like, obviously I shouldn't compare myself to the famous touring acts at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
But I'm also in an environment where we all get booked every week, and I get booked less than them, and I get less spots because there's people that sell more tickets than me getting those spots. So I technically am in a competition with them, but I'm also not, because there is no competition. They're winning.
Yeah.
But they're also winning the competition. So it's like, is there no competition, or are you just losing so hard it's almost not even worth paying attention to the competition? A lot of people say you're not losing, you're young, and that's just sort of how things go. The people that are on top now were at one point on the bottom. But then you also go, well, maybe I'll be on the bottom my entire life. Because there's a lot of people who are. Most people.
I was thinking about one of my friends.
You don't have any friends. So just, why don't you restart the story without lying?
One of my acquaintances, a
There
guy
you go.
I've met a couple times.
Yeah. A guy who would never get lunch with you or call you when he feels sad, or
Yeah.
who doesn't trust you and wouldn't lend you money. Anyway, now that we're telling the truth.
Yeah, basically, he's kind of chubby, like very short guy, but he's brilliant, you know? Brilliant, one of the most brilliant people I ever known in my life.
Okay.
And he does stand-up, and his brother started stand-up a couple years ago. His brother's the opposite. His brother's very athletic and good-looking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And his brother almost immediately got everything handed to him, even though his brother's is funny. His brother's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to act like he's not, you know? But
Okay.
It's like, you see shit like that, and you're like, well, yeah, maybe just how you're born, you know, how you look and all that. That could be the dividing, you know, force between whether or not you actually become successful or you just die in obscurity.
Yeah, I mean, it's how you're born and then kind of what happens to you and where you end up. So that's how you get like a weird, that's how you get some people that sort of break expectations. Or some people will be like, how does this short, chubby guy end up becoming the biggest comic in the world? And it's like, well, if he ended up in a certain environment where people appreciated his work, and then there were certain, industry people that were part of that environment that weren't focusing on the looks or marketability as much and more on the work, then he could get more opportunities.
But that doesn't really exist.
And then, bing, bang, boom.
I don't really think...
Well, I think it exists in the way that it exists for certain people who have enough of their own talent who are lucky enough to be in the right place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, because you look at like a Louis, and it's like he didn't get famous for his looks, and it took a lot of time.
It did take a lot of time, but Louis also, a
time.
couple years into comedy, was like writing on shows and shit. He's just from a different era.
And it was but that's also what I'm saying, is that environment, that specific environment existed at one point.
I do think looks make a big impact now more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, when it's up to people to decide instead of gatekeepers, and it's up to the general public, it's like the general public is usually going to side with a better looking person, And
it's like, damn, that just means that this art doesn't matter because the public are bad people.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the public is not necessarily going to try and... It's not literally their job to find like an interesting person who they think can actually become something long-term and good. They are just seeing what they're seeing in the moment and saying, I like this, so I'll like him and I'll follow him. And then that guy or that girl will become very famous for sometimes only a short amount of time because the public also is not indebted to these people the way an agent or a manager might be, where it's like, I've taken on this client, I need them to do well because as long as they do well, I do well. The public's money is not dependent on these people. So that's a weird thing about gatekeepers, is a lot of people are like, oh, gatekeepers are bad. But it's also like, when it's people's job to find new, interesting talent, they're probably, not going to go with really quick sells. They do now because the public has so much say in it that they kind of have to.
Yeah.
To where they go, this guy has so many followers, I don't really like him. I don't really think he's funny. I don't really know if he can produce specials and be a long-term successful comedian, but this is not really my decision to make anymore because the public has decided he sells tickets, and we can't let this guy who is literally worth millions sit around and not make any money. We have to make him money because it will make us money. And so now it's sort of like they used to do long-term stocks of like, I'll buy low and I'll sell humongously, but now they're like, I'll buy kind of high and I'll sell higher, and then I'll move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. And I think it seems like it's kind of becoming a faster industry.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I still think that gatekeepers or not, somebody who's like very good at stand-up and wants to work as hard as you have to be a professional stand-up will continue to be successful, just because the public is so hungry for stuff that if you're somebody who can produce a lot of stuff, you have value to gatekeepers and the public. And if the public likes you at any point, then you can hold on to that and ride it for a lot longer than people who are more of a flash in the pan,
I also do think, with the amount of mediocrity right now, I do think that the public needs somebody that's like just genuinely funny. Not even just interesting, just funny. They just want a motherfucker that funny as hell.
Well, the public's also sick of itself now.
Yeah.
Because we're the public, we feel what people feel as well. And you go online, and there's a huge video industry now of people who make videos about podcasts they hate and about stand-up comedians they hate. And there's a lot of people that watch those because the people that watch them are the same people that comment under the comedians' podcasts and videos saying, this guy fucking sucks. Why is he successful? I'm sick of this, you know? And so the public is sick of the democratization of being famous. Yeah. They're sick of seeing people where they go, why do we like this guy?
Yeah.
Because it's like what people felt in 2002 when Paris Hilton was famous, but nobody really knew why. Paris Hilton was just famous. And they were like, why is she famous? And that was kind of like the first time people experienced that. of like, this person's just famous for being famous. Why? And then that became kind of the norm.
Yeah.
Where even now, if you are technically a stand-up comedian, you're not necessarily even famous for that as much as you're famous for your looks, or maybe you got famous doing sketches or whatever, you know, where it's like you're not really famous purely for the art, but for your personality. I mean, I've heard comics describe it as like, you know, the way it works now is that you are a brand, and then your specials and your content and what you're putting out is kind of your merch for that brand.
Yeah.
But the power behind it is really not the substance of your specials. It's the brand itself, where people go, you know, I don't want to watch blank special because I think blank is so funny. I want to watch blank special because I like blank.
Yeah.
I just like them. And that's when you get back to what you're talking about with attractiveness and stuff, where it's like these decisions about why the public will like somebody come down to brain functions they're not conscious of.
Yeah.
Of like, this guy's skin color and facial structure and the way he dresses align with my beliefs and values and my cultural genetics and ancestry.
When you say skin color, you're referring to like Asian people, right? Because people really like Asian men.
Yes. I mean, that's why any Asian man that posts anything immediately... Look at all the most famous people in the world.
Yeah.
They're all...
Asian and Indian men who everyone really likes.
They're all famous.
Don't have crazy amounts of prejudice towards.
Okay, but also by the same coin, I am talking about Asian men, and then I'm talking about everybody.
Yeah.
To where Asian and ethnic comedians usually... And by ethnic, I mean just non-white, so it's not a good term. Non-white comedians will sell a lot of tickets to purely their race.
Yeah.
Where if you look at the top 10 highest selling comedians, a few of them are going to be very specific, usually Asian or like Southeast Asian ethnicities, because if you're a Filipino comic, if you're an Indian comic, or if you're a Japanese comic, or you're a Korean comic, and you go on tour and Koreans want to see comedy, they're only going to see you.
Yeah.
Because that's just how that happens. And white people do it too. It's just we're sort of the dominant culture, so we don't necessarily think about it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people would be like, oh, man, I don't know what it is about Shane Gillis, but I love him. And it's like, well, you're from Nebraska. You're a white guy. You vote Republican and you love college football.
Yeah.
That's why you like him. The same as a fucking Indian guy will be like, I don't know what it is about Russell Peters, but I really relate to him. But they actually don't have to say that. They'll just be like, he's fucking Indian. I like that. You know? So that's how it is. You look at, we talked about this on the podcast before, but, in less than a second, your eyes go straight to race and they, assess whether or not it's the same as yours. And if it's the same as yours, your brain naturally feels comfortable.
I'm imagining Terminator.
Yes, we're all Terminators.
Yeah, like it's like white check mark.
Yeah, we're all racist Terminators. And now, the bright side, we do have a prefrontal cortex that does take in situational and environmental awareness. And if you as a white person, you see a black person, your amygdala slightly activates because of your ancestral genetics. You are trained to be afraid of people that look different than you. That'll activate, and then your prefrontal cortex will go, no, black people are cool. We don't do that. We know that now. Chill out, But still, there's stuff in all of our brains that when you see your own race, you're more apt to be like, okay, same person as me. Because thousands of years ago, if you saw somebody that looked different than you, there was a chance you were going to have to fight them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't exist anymore. And that's the interesting thing, is that our brains now are not wired to exist in the society we live in now, which... Okay, I'm not talking about segregation. What I'm talking about is we have like ancient, like million-year-old monkey brains that are trying to like decipher like social media and stuff. So when people are like, oh, I like this comedian, you're using the same machine that was like, oh, is this other primate part of our tribe?
Yeah.
But people act like, oh no, I like him because he's liberal. And it's like, even the liberal shit is just a prefrontal rationalization of some monkey brain stuff you have going on back here that has nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
So everybody's lying to themselves, and everything they like is a lie.
Yeah.
And the only reason this podcast isn't successful is because people lie to themselves.
Well, yeah. If you didn't lie to yourself, you'd be like, everything Cooper just said is true.
Correct and funny.
Yes, and it's fun. Yeah, it's this whole podcast has been hilarious.
What I like about our podcast is that it's not only funny, but it's morally, it's philosophically, and it's politically correct.
Yes.
In that it's all correct. But it's also not woke because we are famous anti-woke comedians.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the way that woke...
I call it the W word. I say I only got one slur that I find offensive, and it's woke.
And it's woke.
Yes.
Because think about how much wokeness has ruined our lives as white men in America doing stand-up. Don't you think that wokeness is actually our biggest problem? And it is not substance abuse, mental health, the socioeconomic structure of our families, or what happened with our families, or anything like that. It's actually wokeness. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, duh.
Because
what does that have anything to do with me?
It's almost a stupid question. Because you've talked about how, your mother tried to kill herself in front of you and your sister. But you would agree.
What?
And you don't. Yeah.
I can still joke about that, right?
Yes, but you couldn't if comedy was illegal.
If comedy was illegal, I wouldn't be able to even freaking talk about it.
So you would agree that wokeness is worse than your mother attempting suicide in front of you and your siblings.
Cooper, let me ask you a question.
Of course, please. Are
you a freaking idiot if you think that wokeness isn't way worse?
And I want to thank you for saying the word idiot, because they're trying to make that word extinct.
Oh, yeah. It used to be a medical term, idiot.
What are some ways that wokeness has negatively affected your life?
I went to the grocery store the other day, and a guy did the knockout game on me.
What is that?
He said he just came up and he punched me.
Okay.
And he said, that's for being white.
Really?
Yeah.
What race was he?
He's an Italian guy.
Do you think he was a BLM, Antifa, CIA psyop?
He was definitely Antifa. I see so many Antifas walking down the street.
Really? What have you seen Antifa doing lately?
Lighting buildings on fire. They light buildings on fire while wearing a shirt that says, I'm actually an ICE for real. So they're pretending to be ICE. And then they're grabbing people off the street and saying, I'm ICE, and then they're assaulting them, sexual style.
What pisses me off about wokeness is that everybody's mad about these ICE raids in LA. But what people don't realize is that all those guys in ICE that are kidnapping people and sending them to Venezuela, they are kidnapping them, they are sending them to Venezuela, but those guys are actually Antifa.
And they're doing it sarcastically.
And they're doing it sarcastically because the left is irony poisoned, and Trump would never do that. Trump does not believe in deportation. Why? Because Trump is fucking Mexican.
Yeah.
And wokeness is trying to erase that. Is trying to erase his Mexican heritage. And that's a Dagnabbit boys guarantee.
Yeah. His original name was Mike Hernandez.
His name is Mike Hernandez, and he's from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, which he can still run for president because Puerto Rico, it's a territory. Yeah, it's a territory of America. So
there's a fucking bookstore down the street, and they sell books that are written by women. And so I went in there, and I was like, wait.
I thought that was the end of the story.
Well, it gets worse, because I was like, wait, Joan Didion, it's not a guy's name. And I was like, what's this? And they were like, yeah, Joan, she's a very famous writer. And I said, she? He said, yeah. And I was like, are they teaching this in schools? And they were like, well, sometimes. And I was like,
it's a cookbook, though, right?
That's what I thought. I was like, this is probably a cookbook. And it was like a novel. Like, she had the gall to try and write about life as a woman, which, as we all know, have it easier because of male oppression. So I was like, wait, you're selling books by women? And they were like, yes. And I was like, oh, well, then this is an Antifa bookstore. And then they said no. And I was like, okay, well, then you're Antifa. Because obviously you're going to lie. This is an Antifa bookstore.
Antifa-manism.
Yeah, so I broke the windows, I punched the cashier, and I took
was the cashier a woman?
Yes, and I took my dick out, and then everybody was offended.
You can't take your dick out in public because penises are offensive, because they're male sex organs.
Penises were never offensive to take out in a grocery store or a bookstore or a coffee shop until probably 2016.
Yeah, when wokeness was invented.
When wokeness came around. And if you listen to guys like Jordan Peterson, he'll tell you that, in 2008, Rome actually still existed. But wokeness ruined Christianity and the Roman Empire.
So what I heard is that Nero actually posted on Tumblr while Rome was burning. Have you heard this?
Yeah, he did.
He posted woke identity politics.
Yeah, Nero
and
was...
I get so mad about identity politics, I can't even stand it.
Yeah, because a lot of people think they hate Trump, but, they don't realize that Julius Caesar was actually posting shitpost memes.
Yeah.
And that's why the Roman Empire was so powerful.
Well, yeah. Caligula was a they, them.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had blue hair.
Yeah.
So just imagine a they, them with blue hair doing all that bad stuff he did.
It was leftist politics.
Yeah.
He invented
and now
leftist politics.
we're about to have a fucking new Caligula in office in New York City. Call it New York Shitty.
Oh, yeah, that guy that doesn't support the peaceful state of Israel.
Yeah.
The only state in the Middle East where you can be gay, which is actually the only thing I know about Israel.
I don't know anything about Israel other than that you can be gay there, and I guess people have their gay vacations there because it's like so gay.
I went to Israel, and I was on a tour where this guy was telling me all these true things. And he said that, Israel is the only state where you can be gay. And I said, well, then I don't need to hear any more.
Yeah.
And
Being gay is the most important thing. And if you're gay and that's the most important thing. So you got to care about only gay stuff.
Yeah. And I saw these people that live in somewhere called like Gazongas or something.
Gazongas!
Yeah, it's next to, I don't know, they named it themselves. And I guess they're really gross people. I've never heard of them. They're called like the Pukistanis or something.
Yeah.
But they live next to Israel. And I guess they just hate it, which is also like, why do you live here if you hate it so much?
And also, they live there, and all their buildings are destroyed.
They just destroy their own buildings. The Israelites were telling me that I guess everybody in Bazinga or whatever just blows up their own buildings because they think buildings are like freedom or something, and they hate it. And I found out that I was like, oh, like all those people are in a cage. Like, what's wrong? And they were like, oh, well, they hate gay people. And I was like, are you going to kill them all? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, that's so awesome. And they were like, yeah, actually, this land used to belong to them. And I was like, I don't want to hear any more. But I don't know. I guess
I heard something that so the Israelis are actually so progressive on gay issues. They'll go to like apartment buildings where the fucking pull-out Palestinians are living, and they'll kill them all. They kill the entire family. They'll shoot the pregnant mom in the head, cut her baby out and stuff, and
great, yeah,
kill the little girl. And
super,
yeah, and
perfect.
Then they'll take pictures of themselves wearing the woman's clothes, so they're trans. So it's awesome, and you go, girls,
because it's the only way to be trans in the Middle East. Yeah,
because Israel is trying to invent new ways to add progressive politics to the Middle East. Yeah,
that's what I don't get, because a lot of people were like, "Oh, after October 7th, the IDF was committing massacres and killing babies." And I remember reading a story about the West Bank about how some settlers, not even members of the IDF, just settlers themselves, burned down a house with a child in it, and it burned alive in its crib.
Yeah,
and a lot of people were. Oh, and then this is also true. There's photo and video evidence of it. Those same Israeli settlers paraded through the streets with a poster that said, "Where is the name of the baby?" And they said, "He's burning." So that's true. You can look that up. I think actually Al Jazeera might have done it. A lot of people don't trust Al Jazeera. Anyway, the point is, that is all completely true. It's
a homophobic baby, right?
Yes. People were mad about it. And I'm like, you want him to grow up?
And hate gay people.
So, if you look at what's happening in the West Bank right now, there's a lot of settlers that, even by Israel's law, are illegally taking over more territory in historical, hate gay people-istan or whatever they call it. And people are really mad about that. And I'm like, it's a country where the only belief they have is to hate gay people and to worship a god that is not the right one.
Yeah, doesn't it sound like you're the dumbass of the week?
I mean, I just don't get it.
I mean, if you support Pilistan, then you're the dumbass of the week.
A lot of people just don't understand that, like, in 1948, 800,000 of these homophobes were ethnically cleansed. And everybody's like, it's a genocide, it's an ethnic cleansing, it has never been recognized by the UN, it's completely wrong, and the discourse that we're having about Israel-Palestine really can't even go anywhere unless we acknowledge those atrocities and grant a right to return for those refugees. But it's like, a right to return to what? Homophobia?
Yeah. Oh, a right to return to the Pride Parade and kill everybody there? Yeah, no, we're not going to have that happen.
I mean, I don't think...
Zoran... Or Zohan.
Fucking homophobia of the Zohan.
Yeah. don't mess with the Zohan and then apostrophe gay people.
Yeah.
With the gay shit.
I mean, what people don't realize is, like, this guy, he's running for New York City mayor. He's a mayor of New York City.
Which
wants to be the
New
mayor.
York City has the second greatest Jewish population other than Tel Aviv.
So
that means it also has a large gay population.
So because all Jews are gay.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people don't realize, that if somebody says, I'm a Zionist, what they mean is, I like to suck cock on my knees.
Yeah, that's...
In bathrooms, in truck stations, stuff like that.
Yeah, they want to lick asshole. They want to have a guy stick a plastic fist up their ass while they shit on their face.
They're femboys.
Yeah.
Everybody in Israel is a femboy, and everybody in, Puka Dagestan is...
I think it's puke on Dadistan.
Yeah, gross,
You're to puke on your own dad.
It's like, okay, who are you going to support? People that are gay and are beautiful, or people that fuck their moms and blow up their own buildings? And the mayor of New York, I guess, wants to turn New York into that other country that people say exists but doesn't. He wants to blow up all the buildings, live in rubble, kill all the gay people, and eat hummus.
And Dagnabbit Boys just wants you guys to know, if you voted for that man, man, I put man in exclamation points because he's probably a they them Antifa.
Wait, I thought he was... Wait, I thought he hated them.
No. There's nothing gay about being a they-them Antifa.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, he's a homophobic they-them.
Okay, so...
With purple hair.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably is wearing a wig that's normal and he pulls off and it's fucking purple hair.
Yeah, because he's also not trans, because that's a fake thing made up by the CIA to weaken men's masculinity.
Yes.
But gay isn't. Gay is good, and that exists in Israel.
Yes.
Which is why Israel's our greatest ally, because it's the only other country where gay people exist.
Yes.
Gay people exist in 3 places: Los Angeles, New York, and Tel Aviv.
I don't know. I don't see many gay people around LA, so I think it's probably just New York and Tel Aviv.
Maybe it's just Tel Aviv.
I don't know. I've never been to New York. I mean, if anybody listen to podcasts from New York, hit us up if there's any gay people there, because as far as I know, there's 0.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, oh, I'm going to Tel Aviv. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you swung that way. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I support it, though. I mean, we have to fucking obliterate Iran into existence because being gay.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Iran, they said they're going to do a ceasefire, Israel and Iran, and they're bombing Israel. Why don't you do something nice for a change, Iran, and drop fucking guys on Israel, sexy guys, and cum shots?
Israel would love that,
because it's full of gay motherfuckers.
They would. That's the way that you.
There's no Antifa in Israel.
The way you weaken the Iron Dome is you shoot a bunch of naked men out of cannons, and then the Iron Dome will shoot down a couple, and then the Israelis will go, no. Those are naked men with hard cocks that we want to suck. Take down the Iron Dome.
Yeah.
And then those men will fall and they'll die, but then they'll suck the dicks of the dead bodies. And while every Israeli is busy doing that, then the Iran will send over actual bombs and they'll like take over the Ben Gurion airport and stuff like that.
So I hadn't even considered this because this was a thought I had just now that every Israeli should be given a severed man's penis to suck whatever they want. Right?
Probably, right?
That's probably is what they're doing in Dummestein. Dummestein, yeah.
It's what gay people like, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But and Antifa doesn't want you to know that. But maybe they are cutting off the dumb idiot stands penises.
But I am conflicted because as a bisexual man that identifies as straight, I do understand that being straightness is under attack and the traditional family is under attack. And apparently...
And you can't sing them Christmas carols.
Yeah, and apparently the people in Palestine have to go underground just to be straight.
Damn.
That's why Hamas had to build all those tunnels, because it was the only place that you can be straight because they're being attacked by woke politics.
Yeah, and they couldn't get up into the sky. Because all their buildings are down, so they can't go up on the top of the roofs.
No, in the glory days of Palestine, people would be as high as physically possible on a roof or maybe sometimes an airplane, having as much gay sex as possible.
Straight sex.
Sorry.
Straight sex.
Politics is so confusing.
Well, here's one thing that I hate. Antifas. And they're trying to convince us that what's going on over there is wrong.
Yeah, I got a report on my desk the other day that apparently Hillary Clinton was actually a blue-haired Antifa.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Epstein's Island, everybody had blue hair, and they-thems. They were all they-thems on Antifa Island, is what he called it.
Mm-hmm.
The Antifa Island.
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein's Island was the #1 place for sex change surgeries.
And it was drag queen story hour. That's the thing, is they would convince the kids to have sex with adults by showing them drag queen story hour, and then they wouldn't molest the kids. They would just see drag queen story hour and be like, "Oh, this means I'm supposed to fuck adult men."
Have you heard about
I'm being groomed.
Have you heard about all the kids that are having sex with adults because of drag queen story hour? I got a report on my desk the other day about it, that apparently every time they have a drag queen story hour, all the kids just rush to suck the cock of the queen after they read the book.
Well, I heard that the kids are like, groups of kids are holding down librarian males, and one kid at a time will suck his cock.
A lot of people are saying that there's pedophiles in the world, but what a lot of people don't realize is that there's actually predator children that are fucking good, honest adults who want to have sex with people of the same age.
I have 3 beautiful sons, right?
Of course.
What I've been doing...
What are their names again?
Phineas, Ferb, and Perry.
Mine's are Marco, Rubio, and Donald.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what I've done, and this is a good any parents out there, if you're trying to, protect your kid. I know pedophiles aren't as, popular as predator kids, but if you're trying to protect your kids, I've inserted an IED into all of my children's rectums.
Very smart.
Yeah, so that if a pedophile tries to get up in there, the kid will explode and die, and it will also kill the pedophile.
I put cock cages on all of my kids. They're these pink plastic cock cages with a little lock on it that have like a leather strap around it, because a pedophile would see that and not be interested.
Well, you also got to put a ball gag in their mouth and a butt plug in their ass, too.
Yeah, so I did all that.
All the holes everything is covered.
Because I don't want the kid to be attractive to pedophiles.
Yes, I put a gimp mask on my kid, and I put a little rubber red ball in their mouth, and I dress them in leather. Oh,
I mostly dress my kids in leather straps that just cover their genitals and eyes.
Yeah.
So the clothes don't weigh them down. They're trying to get away from pedophiles.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been saying that I dress my kid like some sort of sex slave, but I think they're Antifa that's saying that. I think my kid's principal is Antifa.
Only Antifa would look at a kid and think about sex.
Yeah, because I dropped my kid off, butt plug in his ass, cock cage on, ball gag in his mouth, wearing a leather strap harness outfit that was pink leather. And the principal came up and said, this is completely inappropriate. And I was like, you're an Antifa pedophile trying to fuck my kid. Because the minute I take the ball gag, cock cage, and butt plug out of his ass and put on normal clothes, he's entirely fuckable.
Yeah. But what you don't know is there's an IED in his ass.
Ready
and it'll
to
probably
explode.
blow up the whole school.
Yeah.
And it'll kill all these potential pedophile victims.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's good about mass shootings, that the pedophiles aren't getting to have sex with those kids.
It is good when they kill a bunch of kids in a school because then the pedophiles weep because they have less kids to kill. So, I hope the what the fuckers are enjoying this podcast because you don't get this kind of stuff on What the Fuck.
Yeah, you only really get like an Onion writer tried to kill himself or something.
Do you think Mark Maron ever talked about any of this stuff?
Probably. He probably. I know that he's Antifa.
Oh my God.
The what the fuck is talking about his gender, which is they, them.
Oh my God. What are my pronouns? What the fuck? Those are my pronouns. My pronouns are what the fuck and podcast.
Me and Cooper don't have pronouns.
No, because we're anti-woke.
Yeah.
So we don't have them. And a lot of people be like, oh, well, then you identify as he, him. And we're like, no, we identify as AR-15.
Oh-ho. Yeah, I identify as...
This podcast is terrible.
I identify as Z-Zin. Because I'm a freaking bro.
I identify as Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, the Stoic.
Yes, the Stoic, which is a really smart thing that me and a lot of other guys that drink protein shakes but don't work out have gotten into.
Damn, I love Marcus Aurelius and Roman stuff.
Yeah, because all of that stuff, reading the stuff from an emperor of Rome and the way that he thought, which is a life that you're just pretty much entirely born into, is really applicable.
Yeah.
To like a guy that works at an insurance company. Like if you work at Geico, it's really good that you read Marcus Aurelius.
I think it's awesome when guys like that work at jobs like that.
Well, I just think it's funny because a guy will read something like that from Marcus Aurelius who's like, think something and then it'll happen in the world. You know what I mean? Like if you think this way, everything in your life will change. And it's like, well, that's true if you have supreme, divine, ultimate power of a Roman emperor, where literally anything you say is true, and even if it's not true, people agree upon it, and then it becomes true. Or if you have an idea, people build it for you. It's like, yeah, any thought system you have is in that environment correct. There is no such thing as a wrong thought system if you are the ultimate ruler of an empire. If nobody ever disagrees with you, anything you think is correct. But then a guy who has no power, because he's not a capitalist, he's a worker in a capitalist society working at fucking Geico, will read it and be like, yeah, I'm going to do that too. And it's like, you can't.
Yeah. Those guys read Marcus Aurelius and are like, this means I can cheat on my girlfriend.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
I can cheat on my girlfriend, and it's awesome.
It's not even cheating. It's just like they just go out and stay out till 2 and get drunk, and then when their girlfriend's like, hey, I kind of don't appreciate that, they're like, I am the master of my own future.
No, those guys probably buy escorts online and cheat on their girlfriends with them, which is the most pathetic way to cheat on your girlfriend.
To pay for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, to lose money just to cheat.
To be like, I love cheating so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay money.
Going to pay to cheat. It's like, damn, you can't even get pussy.
Yeah, it's really sad. But let's be real, though, that those guys probably do cheat on their girlfriends pretty often with women that are very willing.
Yeah, I was only saying that to say that a lot of these guys that act like they get anything they want don't really actually live.
Let's be honest.
They don't live interesting lives or do anything, really.
Let's be honest, though, and say that their lives are probably better than ours in every single way.
Financially.
Probably, I guess it depends on what you mean. If you don't feel anything and you're like, oh, I'll cheat on my girlfriend all the time and experience pleasure all the time, but you don't like feel any actual emotions, your life's probably awesome.
I just
Like,
always
being a
wonder.
genuine scumbag, it's probably sick.
I just wonder to what extent that's possible, because you never know what
Yeah.
goes through a person's head. And a lot of guys who are like, I get up at 5 a.m. and I do this and I do that. And it's like, if they're always doing so much stuff, you start to realize, well, that's kind of an unquiet mind, And I'm not saying that some loser who sits around all day and does nothing is a fucking winner, but I'm saying if you're like having to work out and like kind of like put your body in pain all the time and you're almost punishing yourself a lot, it's kind of it seems to almost be an expression of self-hate, if not an escape mechanism from your own guilt and shame about the way you live your life and the way you treat others,
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what you see a lot with these hyper alpha guys, and that's why they delude themselves. Like, there's a guy that's really popular online called like King Azuli or something because he thinks he's related to like King Solomon, and he says that he was a counter-terrorist officer for the CIA and Mossad. I think he actually, I'm pretty sure he literally is just a Mossad plant on social media because he's like an alpha male influencer, but he's also fiercely pro-Israel and stuff. But, he goes on podcasts and he's like, I used to go to a Chinese restaurant when I was a kid and the owner saw me and he was like, this kid's amazing. And then he started teaching me Kung Fu and I'd eat beef and broccoli. And he just kind of lies. And, I think like guys that kind of live those lives, like that's like the ultimate, like the influencer, the peak. The guys that lie so much are just sort of like kind of running away from something, which I think is the realization of like, oh, I'm not really happy. I'm not really proud of myself. Like this is all just a supplication for like a deep hole inside,
And we all got that hole, and none of us are unhappy, or none of us are happy.
I don't
so
think...
if you see a guy and think his life's awesome, it probably sucks.
I don't think we all have that hole. I think people that are really trying to express to you that they don't have that hole seem to have it the most.
That's probably true.
Like
Yeah.
people that are just trying to fill it every day, or like, the work never stops. And it's like, well, because you have a hole with no bottom. You throw
and
dirt
that,
into
and that
it
goes
every
back
day.
to our point about Antifa. Because those guys have huge holes.
Because they're getting gaped every day
Yeah.
by their wives. They get pegged and gaped every day.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what we're dealing with.
I wonder if a right-wing person could listen to this and be like, and think that we actually think that stuff.
What I've learned from posting stuff online is that people can believe you're serious whenever they want.
Yeah.
And if they don't like you, they can make a non-conscious choice to believe you're serious and then consciously think you're an idiot and hate you.
Yeah.
Because like we posted that video where you said, I have questions about the Holocaust. How could it be so awful? And people didn't get the joke. And then just asked, how are you so fucking stupid? And then told us to look up the Milgram and Stanford prison experiment, which were completely unethical experiments whose results are very controversial and are not at all trusted by psychologists.
Yeah, people do hear about that sort of stuff and is like, now this is the sort of science I can get behind.
Yeah.
And then it's always like completely unethical and not true.
It's unethical. It was an experiment done once. It was like replicated on a TV show another time, and it's not really a reliable way to test any kind of obedience training or whatever the fuck people are talking about.
And we will be doing a Milgram experiment on the podcast with our Iranian friends.
We're going to get Iranian people on the podcast. We're going to have a voice recorder in the bathroom of somebody screaming, and we'll say every time you press this button, they get an electric shock.
Yeah.
And we'll just see, we will test the morality of Iranians using the Milgram method on our podcast, which will take us to another level because people will go, this isn't just a podcast anymore. It's actually a science experiment.
Yeah, and it's the type of science experiment people could get behind because it doesn't really prove anything.
Did Bill Nye ever do the Milgram experiment or the Stanford prison experiment?
I think he did the Stanford prison experiment.
But he did it in like a goofy fun way with little kids. Where like some little kids were the guards and like beat up the prisoners and stuff.
Well, it was really controversial because he made the white kids the guards and the black kids.
Oh, wow. He really took it to an awful racial level.
He just kind of wanted to prove, something.
What's his problem?
I don't know.
Is he woke?
Oh, that might be his problem. I heard he said global warming's real.
It's woke.
That's like a woke thing to believe.
Yeah, that's like woke, right?
Yeah.
I don't really know anything at all. But I think that's woke.
Yeah. Yeah, he's actually attempting to do drag queen story hour on the show.
He was?
He was well, they said that if you broadcast drag queen story hour on your show, millions and millions of children will start to attack their own parents and try to have pedophile sex with them.
And that happened?
It didn't happen because luckily some alpha males up top shut it down.
Like Donald J. Trump?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, beta males like Bill Nye are always trying to do stuff like that.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Did you know we're alphas?
Well, of course.
Well, yeah, we're alphas because alphas are anti-woke.
Yeah. And alpha is cool because it's like a belief that came from a guy who studied wolves in captivity. And wolves in captivity do not act at all like wolves in the wild. And so he just sort of observed them in captivity where they're acting abnormally and then just put a bunch of arbitrary words on the roles. So it's actually a really reliable thing to call yourself and kind of base your life off of.
Well, yeah, because all this science that's popular science is true.
Yes. And
If
it's
popular,
cool because it's from 60 years ago and has never been replicated and isn't trusted anymore. And that's how you know it's true.
Yeah, because they're afraid.
Yeah.
They're afraid that if they prove the alpha thing, Elon Musk, who is the biggest alpha on the planet, will have more power than ever.
Well,
Well,
everybody stay funny and fight the woke.
yes, stay funny.